And Dale Kildee. Mr. Kildee said in a statement today, quote, "I am convinced that the Senate language maintains the Hyde Amendment, which states that no federal money can be used for abortion." So that sounds pretty clear, despite the fact that Bart Stupak keeps stamping his feet and saying the Senate bill funds abortion. It's kind of hard to see it, but it's there. I swear, guys. There really is no federal funding of abortion in the Senate version of health reform. Even Bart Stupak's friends on this political issue admit that. But, you know, who needs friends when you have the Stupak dozen? Today, Mr. Stupak doubled down on his claim that he speaks for a whole bunch of members of Congress who agree with him, even though their names are secret. Mr. Stupak insists that these members of Congress are not mythical, even though we're not allowed to know their names. He insists that these are non-imaginary friends who think like he does about this issue and who also want to bring down health reform over something that Bart Stupak made up about abortion in the Senate bill. Congressman Stupak, in fact, told Fox News today that he met with his mysterious, nameless dozen lawmakers just yesterday, a secret meeting, of course. He said he even carries a list of their names with him at all times. The quote from the Fox News website today, quote, "The Michigan lawmaker carries the list of the 12 lawmakers allied with him in his pocket." Once again, we called Congressman Stupak's office today, this time to find out what's in his pocket. Once again, no call back. Joining us now is Tracy Weitz. Tracy Weitz is a director at the Bixby Center for Global Reproductive Health. She's an associate professor at the University of California at San Francisco. Professor Weitz, thanks very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
If the abortion language in the Senate bill stands, will there be federal funding for abortion?
No, there's never been a question about whether or not there would be federal funding for abortion.
Would we be maintaining the status quo in terms of access to abortion in this country, affordability, access, and all of those issues, or would things actually be sliding back?
Unfortunately, things would be significantly sliding back. I mean, I think it's important to remember that the status quo itself is harmful to women. It's been harmful to women since it was first passed in 1976. We have reduced access to abortion throughout this country. 87% of counties in this country do not have an abortion provider currently. The women who would be buying insurance in the exchange will no longer have the option to have that be covered without the two-check option that is the Nelson Amendment. So I think it's getting much worse, but I think it's important to remember that it was bad before we started health care reform with regard to abortion financing in this country.
But in terms of what you just said about the exchange and the other ways that things will be if the Senate language passes, can you explain what the Senate language will actually do? As far as I can read it, it seems like it's asking people to specifically buy abortion insurance if they with their own money, if they want to participate in any form of federally assisted health care.
Well, I think it's requiring that people pay two separate checks for their insurance coverage. One check pays for the regular insurance, the other pays for the portion of the insurance that might potentially be needed to cover abortion. So the two-check option, which separates out the money that could be used to cover abortion and the money that you need for other kinds of health care. But I think it's important, Rachel, to remember that abortion is fundamentally a service that women need, and 1 in 3 women in this country will need at some point before the end of their reproductive years, is for an unplanned pregnancy. So most of us don't buy insurance because we think we're going to need something for something we're not planning for.
Right. That's sort of what this boils down to for me. I mean, on the one hand, we've been talking a lot about Congressman Stupak wanting to make the abortion language even more restrictive. But even with the Nelson language, who on earth would ever buy abortion insurance? Because nobody ever plans on having to have an abortion. It's the sort of thing that it's almost a self-defeating concept. So forgive me for being blunt about this, but I understand your point.
No, I mean, it's great that you're covering this issue, because I think that many people fail to look at the sort of technical language, and as a result, they think, oh, well, look, it's not so bad, or, you know, people can buy insurance coverage for abortion if they want it. But it's a symbolic act, and it's meant, I think, fundamentally more than anything, is to make the American public believe that health care and abortion are somehow different. Remember, abortion is one of the most commonly used medical services for women during their reproductive years. But what we're saying, whether it's with the Stupak Amendment or with the Nelson Amendment or with the ongoing Hyde Amendment, is that abortion is not health care. And that's really the argument that they're trying to get the American public to understand in this, and that's the symbolic nature of the Nelson Amendment, and unfortunately it's working. Obama himself said this isn't a health care bill, it's not an abortion bill. But abortion is health care, and it's a health care service that many women need during the course of their life.
Picking up on one thing you said earlier, you mentioned the small proportion of American counties in which there is even access to an abortion provider. The Michigan Messenger has reported that in Congressman Bart Stupak's own 1st district in Michigan, which is something like 33 counties, it's a giant district, there are currently, by their reporting, no facilities that perform abortions at all. His district is massive, and that, it seems to me like that's the rule more than it is the exception in the country, that women right now have very difficult, just practical access to this service.
Correct. In the country today, 87% of counties don't have an abortion provider. A third of women live in those counties. In Michigan, over 80% of the counties don't have an abortion provider. And again, 33% of women in Michigan live in a county without an abortion provider, meaning that they need to travel. And I think it's not hard for people to understand that getting it from your house to an abortion provider, if it involves a long distance, becomes a privilege for people who have economic resources. And the folks who really may need abortion services and may need coverage for abortion now have to both get to the service and pay for it out of pocket on their own.
Tracy Weitz is a director at the Bixby Center for Global Reproductive Health. She's an associate professor at the University of California at San Francisco. Professor Weitz, it's very helpful to have your insight on this issue on the show. Thanks very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for covering this important issue.
Sure, thanks. So far, General David Petraeus has not accepted our offer for him to read his full 8-minute statement on the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell on this program. The statement he was not allowed to read in yesterday's Senate hearing. We do still live in hope.
Do you believe that the Don't Ask, Don't Tell needs a thorough review before action is taken?
Senator, my position is that... Can I give my statement on that, sir?
Yeah, but we're short of time, but please go ahead.
Well, how long is that statement?
About 8 minutes, sir.
No.
The consensus was, after much discussion, that the committee did not have the time, so the general summarized his feelings on the matter as such.
Senator, let me just answer that. I believe the time has come to consider a change to Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
For the record, General Petraeus, the offer still stands. You are still very welcome to read your full statement here on this program, or just send us your full statement, and I will act it out any way you want. But even if General Petraeus' full and complete statement never sees the light of cable news primetime programming, the issue is not going away. The Senate Armed Services Committee hearing on Don't Ask, Don't Tell will pick up tomorrow. Testimony expected from 2 mid-career officers who were fired from the military for being gay. They include Michael D. Almy, a former major in the Air Force who has been a guest on this program. Also, Jenny L. Kopfstein, a former Navy lieutenant. We will have coverage of tomorrow's hearing. It's expected to be rather dramatic on tomorrow's show. Do you have $10,000 burning a hole in your pocket? Do you have an empty space on a wall where a framed photograph would fit perfectly? Will you be in the Minneapolis area around April 7th? If you've answered yes to all 3 of those questions, we have got an opportunity for you. Congresswoman Michele Bachmann, famous for calling for an investigation into anti-American views in Congress, invites you to join her and half-term Alaska Governor Sarah Palin for a very exciting evening. For $500, you can attend to the general reception and dinner. For $5,000, you get a table for 10. And for 10,000 clams, you and yours get to have a photograph taken. A photograph taken with you and Michele Bachmann and Sarah Palin together, just like you've always dreamed. Or you can Photoshop one for the low, low price of about 20 minutes of your time. Proceeds from the event go to organizations as diverse as Michele Bachmann's Primary Election Fund, Michele Bachmann's General Election Fund, and the Republican Party of Minnesota. And remember, if you do go, please email us your pictures at rachel@msnbc.com, and we will put your $10,000 photo on television for free. Maybe. In dictatorial secession news, ever since North Korea's Stalinist, egomaniacal dear leader for life, Kim Jong Un, reportedly fell ill in 2008, there has been a lot of speculation as to who would fill his evil little shoes. But then Kim Jong Un started making public appearances again, and the yearly celebrations of his birthday continued on with all of the pageantry that an impoverished, starved nation forced to parade, dance, and swim in unison could muster. Now the succession rumor mill is once again buzzing with speculation that Kim Jong-il's third son is now being groomed to take over for his dad. Unfortunately, this picture of an 8-year-old Kim Jong-un is the only one we have got. The North Korean government won't release any others. The reason for the new speculation about succession is because earlier this month, this son directed artillery drills, reportedly, near the border with South Korea. Also, as Foreign Policy magazine points out, the regime has started, get this, restricting the use of the dictator-in-waiting's name, Jong-un. If you already have that name in North Korea, too bad. The government dictates that you must change it. It's a good thing we don't have that policy here. Just think of all the chaos if all of the